Good evening. Thank you for joining us for another inner hour this evening. Appreciate it. I'm going to just take a moment, as I usually do, light a candle, give you a moment as well as me to just pause in your day or evening and focus on being present here and coming to rest in spirit and paying less attention to the outer input around us from the world. So just take a moment for yourself to do that if you haven't done it already, and I'm going to do that here. This is one of those candles with a rather short wick, so I'm trying to let it get going here. Not that you'll care because you won't see it anyway, but I will. I'm going to set it over here. So just take a moment and reflect on really paying attention to what's present in you right now, what's in your heart, what's in your mind, what's beyond those, what's the source of all of that. So we're done with our series, the so-called Great Souls series, which obviously we only did a few. That's a whole study in itself. And some of the great souls have contributed by being instrumental in changes in the world. Some have participated by bringing forth new ideas that revolutionized our understanding of ourselves or of God. Some have been just great examples of compassion or great examples of wisdom and so on. So we know we got a chance to touch on a few of those. I hope some of those were interesting to you. So tonight we're done with all that. So tonight we're doing something called Transcendence, and um, before we start into what that is, I want to talk about. I gave a talk today at the local Unity Church here, and brought up a number of things for me. Brought up a number of things for other people too, but a number of things for me. And so I want to talk about something that sometimes isn't really addressed, maybe as a sort of preliminary for getting into the idea of what transcendence is and why it's important in the spiritual journey that we're on. Uh, if you if you're not looking at a particular faith tradition, if you're just looking at people that are involved in some form of, from their frame of reference, spiritual pursuit, and they define it in lots of different ways and use lots of different words and maybe incorporate more than one tradition in their practices, if they even have any practices. But they have this inner longing or this inner sense that they're on some kind of spiritual journey or that they hope to awaken to a larger reality or that they hope to have a direct encounter with God or the divine, or they hope to have some sense of what that is, or they hope to have a greater insight into the human condition and why we're here and what does any of this make any sense and what's it all about? Kind of a lot of the bigger questions. And some people, granted, are not consciously at least focused in that direction or interested in it, certainly not preoccupied with it. But for those who are focused into that, into what might be broadly called spiritual or spirituality, um, my experience over the last 50 years has been that in very broad strokes, that group of people falls into two categories. And depending on which category they fall into, they have a particular emphasis in what they're seeking and a particular emphasis in what they study and what they do. So this will lead into where transcendence plays a part. But but I want to talk about these two aspects because I haven't seen them talked about very often together. The one aspect is people who are on a quest for spiritual, conscious knowing of the divine, of God. Again, if I use a term you don't like, put in one that works better for you. But we're all trying to get at that nameless reality that is the foundation and source of everything. Um, and God's a handy little short word to use for that, even though it has a lot of connotations that might be misleading or disturbing. But so, so the people interested in having a conscious experience of the divine, a conscious relationship with God, we often refer to those people as mystics. And they have avenues that they typically employ in hopes of having those kind of experiences. And almost all of those experiences are transcendent. They're beyond physical consciousness. They're beyond the intellect. They're beyond our belief system. They're not a product of our belief system. They're experiencing a dimension of reality that is not confined to our understanding, not arising out of our belief system, but something beyond all of that, much, much bigger than that, and hard to use language to describe when one has those kind of experiences. So some of those experiences that fall into that category of what people are seeking. We'll mention a few of those. They want some kind of inner experience that's personal to them and clear enough that it's undeniable. It's not like, well, I kind of think I had this experience, or maybe I sort of imagined. No, really direct, clear experience of spiritual reality. And that sometimes takes the form of spiritual beings, where they have encounters with angels, or they have encounters with demons for that matter, or they have encounters with souls that they knew in their life that have departed the physical world, communicating with, the dead, although obviously they're not dead, they're just not here anymore. But communicating with those that have passed on. Or sometimes it takes the form of out-of-body experiences where you have a conscious experience of being out of your body, not just an experience where you go out of the body, perhaps in meditation, aren't really aware of it until you come back, and then you realize you've come back, or in dream state when you're often out of the body and then eventually come back, but you're not conscious of being out of the body and not conscious of the body typically while you're dreaming. Conscious out of the body experiences where you're out of body and you might even see your body and realize you're not in it. Uh, some of those kind of experiences are what people are seeking. Some of them are seeking past life recall and will have those kind of experiences either in deep meditations or in moments of study, perhaps, often in dream states. There are people that do what's called regressions, past life regressions, where people uh, kind of guide someone into having those kind of experiences. Oftentimes, the people in that camp wanting those kind of spiritual conscious experiences that transcend their everyday understanding and everyday consciousness. It's very otherworldly. It's not anchored or based in the three-dimensional everyday physical world that we all inhabit right now. It's not based in it. They're looking for something that's higher than that and transcends that and wanting a direct encounter with it. Sometimes that involves connecting with souls that are great teachers from the past, great souls from the past that they seek to want to have a dialogue with, whether it's Jesus or Socrates or Pythagoras or whoever might fall in their camp that they would like to do. And they either really have those experiences with that soul, because it's very possible to do that, or they don't, but they imagine that they're they have an imaginary experience with that soul. They're basically imagining what that soul would be like and what it'd be like to meet them and what they might say if they talked. It's actually not objectively real in a soul-to-soul sense, but it's an inner experience that's very vivid, and it's their imagination. There are ways to distinguish those from one another, but that's part of what is often sought as well. And then sometimes they're seeking out a particular type of teacher. They'll have a in this life, maybe they'll have a guru, a personal master that instructs them in various meditation practices, sound and light current tradition practices, or um, mantra practices, or some other kind, or breathing practices, some kind of meditation practice that helps the soul to ascend into higher states of awareness. And so they'll work with a particular master, guru, teacher, whatever they call them, that they believe can help them to do that. And sometimes they work with a group of souls that are called the ascended masters, and which is, without getting into any of the particulars of all this, a group of souls. When that's talked about, what is usually meant is a group of souls connected with this particular planet, this particular stream of humanity's evolution, that have expertise in certain areas. They will help you with wisdom, they'll help you with science, they'll help you with healing, they'll help you with music, they'll help you with different aspects of life because they've kind of mastered, hence the name, various aspects of the human journey. Um, which is different than being God realized and different than being a spiritual teacher, but it is something that some people also seek out as a kind of a benchmark for their making spiritual progress because they're having these inner awarenesses with some of these souls in that group of teachers. And again, they'll either have actual experiences with those souls or they'll imagine they're having it based on all the things they've read, but it's helping them to grow in their inner awareness, either way. And so all of those kind of fall into this one broad camp of I want conscious direct experience that's very vivid, might be very profound, is kind of unique, is life-changing, or the other people fall in that camp are psychics wanting to have, clairvoyant experiences or healing powers or manifestation powers, a number of powers that are associated with that. So lots of different types of things in that broad camp of I want direct conscious experience of spirit in a transcendent otherworldly sense. Um, then there's the second primary group of people on a spiritual journey that aren't frankly interested in that, and typically don't have those experiences. And from my framework that I'm talking about now, aren't seeking them. That's not something that they want. They don't want to understand the mechanics of the universe and how it was made. They don't want to have experiences with masters or people who've passed on or past lives or develop psychic powers or any of that stuff. They're not interested in any of that. Um, they have come to the point of recognizing that the essence of what we call God or what we call spirit or what we call the divine, um, the essence of this omnipresent, all that is reality, by whatever name we refer to it, or Yod He Vav He in the Hebrew scriptures, that Lord God idea. They've decided that the essence of that, based on teachings of all the great masters, and perhaps based on their own experiences, the essence of that spirit is what we refer to as love. And by that, we mean far more than the human emotion of love, which is a reflection of it, but by no means the whole of it. That there is this omnipresent, ever abiding, ever accessible, profound love in the acceptance of oneness, welcoming, wholeness, completion, forgiveness, acceptance, this kind of whole thing that we call by this little word love that is absolutely boundless. There's no bounds to it in time or space. It transcends time and space and also permeates time and space. And so their focus is on love. And everything around their in their life, they try to make revolve around that. And everything that happens in their life, they try to see from that perspective. So to them, God is love. So that's all they're seeking. They're wanting to experience love within themselves. They're wanting to share the love that's in them with others. They're wanting to be open to the love from others and experience that. They are open to seeing other souls as souls, not as the human personality, which may be very pleasing and likable, or may be very crotchety and awful and not likable. Um, they are seeing things through the eyes of love, or that's their goal. They want to see things through the eyes of love. They want to see the divine in other people, in other animals, in all things. And they want to awaken to that love. They want to have a fuller and fuller experience and be able to express at a fuller and fuller way that love. And that's their orientation. So if you talk to them about studying ancient manuscripts, why would I be interested in that? If you talk to them about meeting a master in the inner planes, why would I be interested in doing that? If you talk to them about past life, who cares? I'm living this one and love is what's important. So there's not the desire to have these extraordinary or transcendent um, or more conscious experiences of the divine or the interworkings of how the divine has designed its creation and how that creation works and our place in it. It's not something of concern to them. So those kind of studies are not typically what they pursue. And those two broad camps that I've outlined, and granted, it's an oversimplification, those two broad camps, in general, don't understand each other. There's obviously crossovers, but by and large, the people that are focused on, I want to spiritually awaken to higher consciousness. I want to awaken to these spiritual realms beyond human experience and beyond the physical creation. I want to have experiences of at a soul level. Those are typically not desires that the love camp has. They want to experience more love in their life. They want to participate more in love in their life. They want to awaken that love more in others, and to connect through in loving ways with others. So these are my point is that both of these are aspects of the spiritual journey. And while one is in primarily one camp, it may be difficult to see the value in the other camp, and conversely. But they're actually both part of the spiritual journey, and they're both aspects that souls will all move through at some point. So all souls will at some point have conscious encounters with God and with all of the agents of God, and at some point experience that the reality of God and the intent of God and the will of God is the manifestation of love. So they all go together. It's actually one big thing. But being human and being in a polarized consciousness, we tend to focus more on one or the other of those aspects. And sadly, sometimes think that people who are not focused in our aspect are kind of missing the point. And and they're really not. They're not missing the point. And and sometimes we don't value an approach somebody else has because it's not useful to us. And it's legitimately not useful to us. It doesn't mean we have to start practicing things that have no meaning to us or no interest for us. But it does mean that it would be helpful if we could maintain the attitude that all avenues necessary for people to awaken to what's real, which is love, which is the essence of God, that all those avenues that are necessary to experience that are provided. They're all available. God's made all of that possible. So people following an approach that is not yours is not necessarily meaning that they're way off track. It may mean that they're coming from a different angle, so to speak, different paths climbing the same mountain kind of analogy. Uh, and the other thing to recognize that is that if we pay attention inwardly, we're going to be guided to which one of those we need at any given phase of our life. So you may have gone through a phase, let's say a psychically interested phase, UFOs and powers and healing and yada, 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 manifestation. You might have been all interested in that and like really, really interested in it. And now it's like, and you're focused elsewhere. Or you may have been really interested in meditation practices and done tremendous amounts of that and had wonderful experiences and now going, and now you're focused on a family or on being with your grandchildren or on enjoying your retirement. And people think, oh, well, they're not very spiritual anymore. Wrong. So, we have these different phases that we move through. All of them are important in our soul's journey. And we may not be in the same space as someone else on their journey. In fact, we usually are not. So it's helpful to recognize that there's an ebb and flow to these things, and we're guided in the right direction if we just pay attention. Sometimes we have difficulty if we've been used to one approach and suddenly inwardly we're now being called to explore something else. Let's say we've never liked reading and we've never studied and we don't want to study and spiritual study has no appeal to us whatsoever. And all of a sudden we start finding, oh, I want to find out about the Bible. I'm thinking, I don't know, I don't. Why do I want to do? Or I want to start studying Eastern tradition, or I want to start studying Buddhism. It's like, why do I? Because there's an inward shift and you're actually being called into that area. And sometimes we'll resist that because it's unfamiliar. So, all right, the last piece I want to mention, and then we'll get into specifically the transcendent part, which is what this we're going to be dealing with for a while in this inner hour. There's another part that very few people see, and it's okay that they don't. It's not. It's not really maybe for most people. But the other thing is that human history on this planet is not disconnected from spirit. There's a spiritual energy at work behind everything that's happening right now on this planet and that has ever happened on this planet. And so, if we study the history of mankind and key moments in those histories, whether it's key civil moments, key civilization moments, key destruction of civilization moments, key philosophical growth moments, key spiritual influx moments, key horrific evil conflict moments, any aspect of history that we study, there are a spiritual dynamic underpinning all of that that we don't have to study and we don't have to understand. But if we do study it, it can provide so much greater clarity as to what's going on that can be quite reassuring, especially in times of great trouble and unrest, as we seem to be in right now. It can provide a sense of what God is unfolding and what humanity is doing with the energies that are coming forward right now, both on a positive and negative side, and give some perspective and clarity on that. The other thing is that it can provide some insight into the fact that movements started in one epoch of history, spiritual ones I'm talking about, that might have seemed to fail. There is a continuance of that in other epochs of history that continues to evolve, that we might not see the connections if we don't study our own history. And for example, there were a lot of things that were started in various periods of Britain and Europe with the legends of King Arthur, which are primarily legendary, but there's some historical basis to those, and with the idea of the code of chivalry, which of course had a lot of abuses and exceptions and whatnot, but it was a remarkable thing with with justice systems coming forward, like the Code of Hammurabi, and then English common law, and then the United States Constitution and laws, and so on. Some of these evolutionary things that provide a sense imperfectly granted, a sense of equality and structure to help enable the human soul to have greater and greater freedom in its societies. So there's a lot of work behind the scenes in some of these things, which it can help to have a sense of. And then things that failed in one era with a certain group of people. Um, for example, Jesus had 12 hand-chosen apostles. He and all 12 of them were martyred. Well, I shouldn't say that. John wasn't. 11 of the 12 were martyred, along with Jesus. And along with, although it's not recounted, many members of his family, too, that we don't hear much about. But he had brothers who were martyred as well. So there's a lot of, if you want to look at it from that perspective, there's a lot of failure going on there. He didn't become king of Israel. He didn't, he didn't overthrow Rome. He didn't establish peace, and so on and so on. And neither did any of his apostles. And they all, mostly all, died horrible deaths. So that looks like a failure. And yet there are movements that arose out of that. St. Francis and St. Clare, the Franciscan orders, the Benedictine orders, the various Protestant churches that came along later, the various more eclectic churches, the then movements into different transcendentalist groups in the United States, like the Emerson groups and stuff like that. There's a continuance of things that if we stop at one thing and look at this one scene, it looks like, oh, well, that didn't work. But it actually continues. And often, who's continuing it are those same souls re-embodied again. So there is a usefulness in looking at the spiritual dynamic of how history has and continues to unfold on the planet that can be very insightful and is not something that is usually, if historical things are looked at all, it's usually from within a tradition, like looking at a biblical tradition, looking at Jewish history from the Jewish Bible perspective, or looking at history from a Christian Bible perspective, and so on. So anyway, those are all of those areas are part of the soul's journey through the human experience. And at one time or another, will be drawn more to some of those aspects than others. I know people who meditation is a hugely important part of their life and their regular practice. I know people who meditation not so much, but prayer is a huge part of their practice and a very important part to them. And I frankly know people who do neither one on a regular basis and yet consider themselves spiritual because what they're focused on is not praying, not meditating, not having these inner experiences. They're just focused on being kind, loving, compassionate people. And they really are focused on that. They're not accidentally doing it. They're doing it intentionally and trying to seek out other people like that and encourage people to be more like that. So all of these facets are part of the spiritual journey. So that being said, I want to focus on transcendence a little bit, just for a few minutes, and then I'll pause again just in case people have comments or questions about any of this part so far. But um, the idea of transcendence actually, excuse me, um, comes from the root of that word, transcendence, is basically Latin, and it comes, the primary root word is scendere, which means to climb or to make an ascent. So the idea is that transcendence involves, by definition, an ascent of some kind, which I'm going to describe as an expansion of consciousness or awareness. Um, but it literally means to climb beyond. So transcendence in the way that it's usually used means that you have an awareness or an experience that transcends everyday understanding, everyday consciousness, everyday physical limitations. Like if I wanted to talk to my son who's dead, or I want to talk to my dog Simca who's gone, um, I cannot do that. They're not physically present. So within the confines of this world, I can't do that. You can't do it. Nobody can do it. It's impossible within the constraints of this world and the physical consciousness that we have, uh, because they're not part of this time-space frame of reference right now. But if I can transcend those limits into something that is beyond this particular time-space three-dimensional constraint, into a broader time-space context, or perhaps even transcending time-space altogether, then all kinds of experiences are possible to me that I can't have rooted here.
It's almost
So
impossible.
um, the the idea of this transcendence is that it means to have an awareness of, or to have an experience which leads to an awareness of, these higher dimensions of reality, or if you like to think of it that way, higher dimensions of self, higher dimensions of being that
Most definitely.
that are not confined to and are not bound by um, the constraints of the physicality that we share while we're embodied like this. And and then those kind of moments, and they don't have to be spiritual practices can help cultivate an inner awareness that helps those things to come forward. But it's not a control mechanism for making them happen. And they can happen without those mechanisms. For people who have had children, my supposition is, unless you're quite different than many of us who are parents, the time you held your newborn child in your arms was a transcendent moment. Yes, you were holding them. Yes, it was physical. Yes, there was a connection at this level, but it felt so much more than that. And the import of it, the impact it was going to have on their life and on your life and other lives was so much bigger than just this child in your arms and you. And you had a sense of this expansiveness or transcendence in that moment. Probably when someone you love has died, there has been a transcendent moment where the regular course of your life stopped and the regular course of your thoughts stopped. And everything was focused on this moment of that soul not being present with you anymore and what that really meant and was going to continue to mean as they continued to not be present with you physically. And and so there's a we see a bigger picture in some of those moments than we typically do because we tend to get tunnel vision and zero in on just what we're doing right now. And in some of the big life moments, birth, death, marriage, childbirth, those kind of things, um, we get a glimpse, if you will, like a little hole in the veil that we can see with a much bigger eye, a much bigger picture than we usually do. And in those moments of transcendence, there are common experiences, such as a feeling of expansion, a feeling of rising up, a feeling of floating, a feeling of being welcomed into something wonderful, of warmth, of acceptance, of being supported and cared for, of being safe. Many things we don't experience all that often, sadly, in everyday consciousness, it seems like right now. And there's a feeling of connectedness, of interconnectedness, or a sense of greater oneness than we have experienced or imagined before. So those transcendent moments have certain characteristics to them. And if you have a profound enough one or have them often enough, it really alters how we look at life and our approach to life because it's very difficult to go back to thinking, oh, it's just this, and this is all there is, just this. It's very difficult when you've had these openings, if you will, or awakenings or ascensions. It's very hard to describe something that's non-physical because language is oriented primarily to the physical world. So, or at least the mental world, which, while way bigger than the physical, still has its own limitations. There are things the mind can't conceive that are nevertheless real. So, but the soul in us can experience that greater transcendence even than the mind can. So, Okay, so I want to work a little bit next week with the idea of this transcendent part and what we experience in those moments of transcendence that probably all of us have had, and what are some of the characteristics of those moments, and how did they impact you? And then also talk about there are practices that, as I said before, cultivate in us a greater sensitivity and a greater openness that allows more of that transcendence to take place in our lives, and can be very helpful practices. They won't assure that you have certain experiences, but they will. Um, it's kind of like if you cultivate the garden and you plant the things you want. It doesn't guarantee you're going to have a good crop, but it guarantees you're going to have a far better one than if you didn't do any of that. So it's kind of like that. So I'm going to pause here for a moment and just see if anybody else has anything they'd like to share with the group, hopefully on this topic. Ah, good. Nahama and Shirley.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm sorry. I got distracted, so I didn't hear everything you said because of something that happened around here. But I just wanted to share my own, a little bit of my own process with
Yeah,
this.
please, please.
And that is that I used meditation to get bigger and to
Hmm.
get in touch with something deeper than me, something beyond me, whatever that was. I wasn't sure. I wasn't defining it.
Hmm.
I wasn't walking either of the two paths you laid out at first. I
Hmm.
was just seeking that which was greater, and I would have called it God, but with the same reservations,
Yeah,
because people have an idea of what God is to
yeah, yeah,
them, and
yeah,
it's not what I use oneness these days.
yeah, yeah.
And what I really learned in my own process was through meditation, I began to feel my own boundaries
Hmm.
where I thought I ended, you
Yep,
know.
yep.
And in learning about those boundaries, what I started working with was just dissolving those boundaries or going beyond those boundaries, expanding them, becoming more spacious. You know, there's a kind of several ways of looking at that. And that was an interesting thing, yet I stayed firmly in ego until I realized that I was not paying any attention to my full boundaries because I was unconsciously thinking about what my eyes saw.
Oh, right, right,
So it was just in front of me.
right.
So I started in my meditation also focusing on behind me, and my spaciousness grew in all directions
Mm-hmm.
with that, and it shifted and opened me up in new ways.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
just thought I'd share that. And I mean, I'm happy to answer questions around my own process, but it's kind of hard to come up with beyond sharing that particular thing right
No,
now.
that's
What
wonderful. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, very, very good. Thank you. And bless you, Shuli. I think you sneezed a minute ago. So,
No, it's just my GERD's
oh,
cough.
you
Don't
cough. Okay, gotcha. Yeah,
worry.
yeah.
Yes, though I do want to, as an aside, give you a poke. Well, you, Ani, James, and Lance, today is Mel Brooks's 100th birthday.
Oh
So
my
go,
gosh, I didn't
oh,
realize that.
yeah.
yeah, he's 100, so go watch one of his films.
Wow. Yeah, good advice. Good advice. That's amazing. You know what's really funny is he used to do a bit with Carl Reiner about being 1,000-year-old man. I don't know if you know from yeah, early on in live stage stuff.
James,
Very cool. Very
You're
cool.
welcome.
Thank you, Shirley.
Sure.
Thanks, Nahama. Yeah. All right. Anybody else have something you'd like to share?
Hey, Stephen, it's Liz.
Hey, Liz.
If anybody cares to see a lovely interview, I believe it's with Mel Brooks, and who was the other director you spoke of?
Carl Reiner.
I think so. Jerry Seinfeld has Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee. He interviewed both of them, and they're
Oh,
quite elderly at this point, and it's just a
oh,
wonderful
yeah, nice.
episode. I think
I've not
it's on Netflix.
Netflix. Yeah,
So
I've not seen those. That's interesting. Yeah,
they're great interviews, all of them, but that one's particularly cool.
yeah.
So
Carl Reiner was a very well, I mean, obviously,
yeah,
I'm saying this from what I know of him through the media, but I actually corresponded with him very briefly for a time, and he was just a very kind. My experience with him, which was very, very limited, but was a very funny and very kind man, very nice person. So anyway, yeah,
he was politically active and that kind of stuff, and of course his son was politically active.
yeah, he was
The names are
very
leaving me today.
Rob. His son was Rob.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
very, yeah, he was very active.
yeah.
Uh, but yeah, yeah. So thank you. That's interesting. I'll have to check that out. But, so anyone else? Mhm. Allison, hey, go ahead.
Hi there. Well,
Hi,
I'm
hi.
just finding this fascinating, especially your discussion of people in the two camps
Hmm.
not seeing or understanding each other. And that really clicked with me.
Hmm.
I definitely see that
Yeah.
in just in other people, other situations. Anyway, so that was very helpful.
Oh,
Thank
good.
you.
Oh, well, good. Thank you. I'm happy to, always happy to hear that. Thank you. Yeah. It's so nice to, by the way, I've said this to you before, but I'm just going to say it again. It's so nice to have you, with us. It's been so many years, and
I
it's
know.
lovely. So thanks for
Well,
doing
I
that.
feel the same way. And it's so wonderful to be learning from you again. I
Oh,
really treasure it, even though I can't always be here.
yeah. Thank you. And it's so, I don't know if anybody else has this experience because some of you are as old as me and some are not, but many not. But like seeing you and talking with you and reconnecting again, all that. Two things. One is I recognize that we both, especially me, look very different than we used to,
Yeah.
but but we're not, but we're the same. I mean,
Uh-huh.
you're the same as I knew you, umpteen years ago. And
I
and I
was
think,
thinking just when you first came on with the video, it's like, gosh, in my mind, if I just paint your hair color, you look
yeah,
just the same to me.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And he was putting together some pictures for a memorial thing recently, and there were some pictures of me in there. And I had my dark, I was young, I had my dark hair. I was like, oh my God, it's been so long since I thought of myself like
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
and I have to confess, for a moment, I missed it a little bit.
Yes.
But,
Yes.
but yeah, but it's interesting. And the other thing for me, like with you and other friends that I've had, that I've gone, well, Nick Martin, I'm reconnected with
Mhm.
Nick Martin now too, and he and I are connected frequently now. And Nick and I used to be very close, and then we weren't for. I don't mean we had a falling out. We just,
Mhm.
drifted apart
Mhm.
for years and years. But when you reconnect with, when I reconnect with souls that I have that kind of connection with, it doesn't seem like 10 years or 30 years or 40 years have
No,
passed. It doesn't seem like that.
no,
It seems like it was
no.
yesterday.
Or 6 months ago, maybe.
Yeah, or a few
Yeah,
months ago, but
yeah,
not like 30
yeah,
years ago. It's,
yeah.
yeah.
I
And
know.
and so I think that's an interesting, I think that kind of timelessness aspect is another interesting indicator that we're not really just physical beings, because I don't think that would be very
Confined to this
confined to
time.
that business. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly, because the time doesn't exist. But
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Between
Yeah.
friends like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've
Yeah.
reconnected with my former business partner and found very, very similar kind
Yeah.
of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a dear friend, then we'll get off our little social gab here, but I have a dear friend that I met in third grade, and neighbor actually lived three houses down, and became one of my best friends, all through elementary school, all through middle school, um, all through high school. Then she went away to college, and I didn't, and then she got married, and then I went, and we went our, the separate direction thing, and we didn't see each other for years, and then we did, and it was just like. I don't, I mean, it was just, we had things to catch up on, of course, that happened in the intervening time. But as far as knowing each other or feeling
Mhm.
comfortable with each other or any of that stuff, it was all just immediately right there again. So, yeah. And she's now still one of our best, and now she's one of Ani's best friends too, which is fun.
Oh, that is
So,
really nice.
yeah, yeah, she's a sweetheart. But, and she and her husband and my friend and I all grew up on the same block. And she ended up marrying him, and we ended up being best friends for our whole life.
Oh my
Is that
gosh.
wild?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, thank you, Allison. All righty. Anyone else have something you'd like to share with the group? So I have a question. See if anybody can answer the question for me. So if you've had any of these kind of transcendent spiritual experiences, I won't rename them all, but the out of body thing, the having an experience of a higher dimension of life, having experience with a being from a higher dimension of life, angelic or otherwise. Um, for anybody who's had one of those kind of experiences, what impact did that have on you? After it was over, did it make any difference? What changed, if anything, because you had that kind of experience?
Hello, Stephen.
Hey, hi, brother.
All right. Hey, man. Yeah, well, as you pose that question, and
Yeah.
thank you, Shirley, for the meditation on boundaries and stuff like that, because I don't know what my boundaries are, girl, because I always fall asleep before I get there during meditation. That's my problem. Anyways, stick with your question, Stephen, in dreams, nightly, weekly, all the time, man. I still dream I'm back in the military, dude.
Oh, yeah.
These are lucid dreams. Lucid dreams.
Right.
Are these, and towards the end of the dream, it's like, oh my God, am I still here? And then, and then not that I necessarily don't want to be or that's simple, but when I wake up, that great sense of relief is, thank God I'm not. I'm here at my home, 4412 South Wayne, Indiana, and Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
This is, it's ongoing. Okay. But I think that falls in line with the question once
Oh, it
thank you
does.
for
Yeah, for
posing.
sure. For sure. Yeah. Thank you, Lance. Let's do Allison next and then back to Shirley Nahama.
Well, I have been um, immensely fortunate enough to have some of those experiences. And I think the impact on my life has been huge.
Mhm.
It's given me this, it's not going to make any sense, the words I'm going to use, because again, like you said, they're all based in our time and physicality, but it's like I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that what we experience right now in this life is not all there is,
Right.
and that there is something more, and that I mean, and the more just goes on and on
Yeah.
and on and on. The immenseness, and just really concretely showed me some greater truths.
Right. Right.
And they remain very meaningful to me. Just thought I'd share that.
That's wonderful. Thank you. That has been my experience as well. And my assumption is that's people who have experiences like that, it does change things in their life, and it changes how they look at life and death, and it changes and it stays with you, you know. So
And I think it changes, at least I think it's changed me.
mhm, mhm,
And because you can't, once you see that you're not just confined to this little physical space-time box,
right.
you can't unlearn that. You know what I mean? It's one of
Yeah,
those experiences like childbirth that you can't unlearn.
that's right.
It's there. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah. I think you said that very well. Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm not surprised you said it very well, knowing your skill with words and communication, but I think you said that very well. Okay, back to Shuli Nohama.
I just wanted to share that in following that path that I talked to you about a little bit,
Mhm,
unknowingly, what I did feel was held in a much bigger,
mhm,
for want of a better word, energetic field. I don't know how else to say it. I call it oneness. And I
yeah,
do experience that love that you talked about,
yeah.
that there's a deeper underlying goodness in our world if
Mhm,
we could open to it. And what I realize is that one of the things that keeps us from it is our egos,
mhm,
our inability to see beyond our own needs and wants and desires and things like
yeah,
that. That was what I experienced with myself and others who were walking the path with me.
yeah, yeah. Amen to that.
Yeah, and that there were so many challenges in my life. You know my history.
I do.
Between husband's long decline and my own medical challenges in recent years. And I could have gotten very depressed and very unhappy and gone down a
Oh
dark
yeah.
hole.
Oh yeah.
Instead, when things would get rough, I just open up to the light that's there.
Mhm.
It it just brings out the wonder of life.
Yeah. That's a great phrase. Yes, it does. Yes, it
Yeah,
does.
that's all.
Yeah. Thank you, dear.
Sure.
Oh, by the way, quick personal thing. Did you get the link I sent for our Zoom tomorrow? Okay, great. Thank you. All righty.
Okay.
Eunice and or Ted, because sometimes he's hiding in the background and has things to say.
Sometimes that is very true. Sometimes he hides. He
Well,
is
I
doing
didn't mean he was
just that
hiding. I meant he was not visible on camera, but maybe he does
as
hide too.
as as we speak. Um, one of the things that I am impacted by is feeling sorry for people who don't have any of those experiences.
Mm, yeah.
I happen to have a sister who doesn't believe in anything
Mhm,
that
mhm.
transcends.
Right.
And sometimes we have difficulty communicating,
Mhm.
but even on very superficial levels where I might just talk about something real simple about might be a telepathic experience or just a coincidence. I keep it light, and
Right.
she can't even accept with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I just going, God, that's got to be pretty empty.
Sure seems like it to me. Yeah. I know, and I know a few people like that as well. And the ones I know in particular, I don't know your sister, but are quite intelligent people. It's not like they're not intelligent or not even well educated, and they really think, like you said, they just can't see anything beyond this immediate physical reality. They just can't do it. And I've often thought for me, how hard that would be to kind of soldier on in life thinking this was it. So I have a lot of compassion for that too.
Well, if it reveals anything, she does have a master's degree in accounting
Okay.
and had a career working, at management levels in banking.
Yeah, well, that I can't relate to that at all.
So, so those things, yeah, those things kind of
Yeah,
gather in their way of things being able to be measured and
yes. Interestingly
what's
enough, this will mean something to Eunice and probably maybe not anybody else here, but Hamid Bey, when he was still alive, was talking to a group of us teachers one time and said, it is very difficult to immerse yourself in numbers all day long and stay in touch with your intuition. I thought that was interesting. He didn't say it was impossible, but he said it's very difficult. And having been in bank management for almost 12 years, many years ago, that absolutely happened to me. It was one of the things I did not like about being in banking. And I'm not saying it has to happen to people, but it certainly did with me. It occupies so much of the left brain stuff and activates so much of, if we're talking about it from a physiological point, so much of that all of the more right-brained things kind of get drowned out. And unless you do things like meditation or specifically try to disengage from that analytical uh, active stuff, it kind of takes over. So
well, she recently, well, having trouble with her computer, had to take it in and so on. And then she described herself as I'm a numbers person. I want to see what
yeah, yeah.
this person was working on. And I dread numbers.
I do now. I used to love numbers, but I've had I did that phase of my life. I'm kind of done with that now. But yeah, yeah. Well, thank you, Eunice. Well,
Anyway,
I appreciate that.
and
We're
wish
almost out of time. I'm going to try to get to one more here. We got one more hand up, but thank you. Appreciate that. Who we got? James, go ahead.
Yeah, it's 7 o'clock. So real quick for Shui Nakama, uh, t-shirt, Tree of Life, Yggdrasil.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Nice.
so there you go.
Mythology.
Yep. So
Idris mythology.
exactly. So getting on to what Eunice just said, I actually used to be like that up until quite recently. It was very much, it doesn't help my job as in federal law enforcement either.
Yeah,
But
really, really.
especially with the IRS where I'm dealing with, numbers and everything. But, for me, it was very much what is real, what is there.
Right.
And it took me a long time to and it really wasn't until really last October that I started I kind of dipped my toes into things a little bit, but there's always the rationalism brought me back. But it really wasn't until last October when I had a couple of just odd things happen. I guess it would be transcendence.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until then that I was able to really understand that maybe there is something beyond, the physical. I guess would that be metaphysical? I suppose. But
Yeah,
yeah, that's
absolutely.
just kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
So because you live in the world, but I never wanted to be in it, a part of it.
Yep.
And so that's kind of what always pulls me back away from going off the deep end into complete and total rationalism.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Spock in Star Trek One.
Right. Yes. Yes. Yeah. I know. It's been really, I mean, knowing your dad as well as I did, and spending so much time with him and the many late night conversations we had about this sort of thing. It's been really just a delight for me to get to know you and as an adult, because I only, the time I knew you, before you moved, and
Little
it
dude.
was very, yeah,
Yeah, just a
exactly.
little dude.
Yeah. And so it's been really, really very rich experience for me to see who you've become and what your skills are and what your life experience is and watch how I think you're a remarkable person, and I'm really glad I know you.
Well, I'm something, all right.
You
So,
are. You absolutely
well, I
are.
appreciate it. I appreciate it, and it's been really nice to get to know you as a human as well,
Oh,
instead of
thank you.
just this archetype or something.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
as a kid, everyone, all the adults are classified and everything. So,
Sure. Yeah. I have the friend I was talking about before, my lifelong friend that was up in my neighborhood that I was mentioning before. Um, when we both became adults and had children, her oldest son, who's brilliant, I just love him. He's like your age now, but when he was like a teenager, I think it was when the Star Wars trilogy first came out and started, and he was a big fan of that. And so, because he only knew me through um, very brief encounters and mostly from his mom talking about me and things that she would talk with me about, so he always called me Yoda. And when he actually got to know me, he said, "Hey, Yoda's a real person. He's kind of nice." So it was
That's
interesting.
great. I
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. And I mean, I didn't know that until he revealed
Mhm.
that to me one day when we were having lunch
Yeah,
together. But it was funny.
that's cool. I like that.
Yeah. Thanks, James.
Hmm.
All righty, y'all. Well, I guess we're out of time. So next week I'm going to do a little more with this um, and talk about how some of the transcendent experiences that we have that might just seem kind of personally oriented toward us, kind of how that relates to some of the deeper teachings in some of the faith traditions. I wasn't thinking about Nordic stuff, although that's an interesting one. I'd have to brush up on that, or maybe have James cover that part. But some of the teachings that aren't really delved into in Christianity and Judaism, that are more of a transcendent nature than more, and by that I mean more transcendent than, say, conceptual in nature. That there are a lot of those teachings in ancient traditions, and many people who study Judaism or Christianity or some of the more ancient um, other ancient traditions kind of look at the conceptual belief systems of those traditions and don't really pay much attention to more of the trans-conceptual, if I can invent a word, um, higher aspects that are talked about in those traditions. And the belief systems vary quite a bit from tradition to tradition, but the transcendent aspect of them actually is very quite similar in many of them. So I'm going to see if I can bring in some of that next time and see what we can do with that. So, all right. Well, I thank you all for being here very much. Appreciate it. I hope you have a blessed week, and I hope you extend those blessings to the people you encounter and the animals you encounter as well, for that matter. So if we just take another brief pause like we did at the beginning and sort of take in whatever you heard this evening, whatever that may have stirred within you, just be attentive to that for a moment. And one facet of the idea of transcendence is that we transcend this limited into a bigger, more connected sense of oneness, as Nahama said. So when we put forth something that seems like this is just Stephen saying words, or this is just Nahama saying this, or this is just our group doing something, it actually goes much further than that. So when we extend blessings to people in our lives, extend blessings to people in the world at large, extend our hopes and prayers for peace and for understanding. That may seem like it really doesn't do much, but at these transcendent levels, it does quite a bit. And it changes the energetic dynamic at those higher levels. And eventually, sometimes it's very slow, some of that begins to filter down into the physical realms as well, and things get better. So may the blessings we share, if nothing else than being in spiritual fellowship with each other, if the blessings we share here can move from us out into the creation, and particularly those struggling in this world right now, then we've done a very small part, but maybe a helpful one in making things better. Thank you all for your love and your kindness. I appreciate it. Good night.